Doctor Who's turning 60 this year, and I bet you won't believe how I first got into this show, back in the noughties. But before we begin, if you are new here, please subscribe, make videos about all things TV that you're gonna love. And I'm also on Patreon, where I'm just about to upload some exclusive outtakes of my Eurovision reviews. So if you want to see those, go to patreon.com/Mr. So yes, indeed, in honour of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, I've been thinking, as a child of the noughties, the so-called wilderness years, just how did I get into the show? And weirdly, my earliest memory was watching the Peter Cushing movies back in around 2001, 2002.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Doctor Who, and this is my time and space machine, TARDIS.
I think I'd heard of Doctor Who at the time, but I'd never actually had a chance to watch it. Until one day I saw Channel 4 were airing the old 60s movies, and I thought I'd finally give it a go and see what all the fuss was about.
Tread carefully. They've got sink plungers for arms and they're angry.
Exterminate them!
Doctor Who and the Daleks. Sunday at 5:25 on 4.
And I was just hooked from the start. I was so intrigued by this mysterious scientist.
This is TARDIS. TARDIS?
His magical time and space travelling invention.
Oh, what's happened to London then?
Maybe it's Sunday.
Of course, it's not Sunday. I'm playing football Sunday.
And those evil pepper pot monsters that wanted to take over the world.
We will complete the war which our ancestors should have won.
And I even remember having a nightmare once after watching the second movie. I dreamt that the Daleks had invaded my hometown and that the Robomen had locked me in my bedroom. I found them so scary at that age, and I remember creeping down the stairs the morning after just to check that everything was all right, that it was all just in my head. And as for my first introduction with the show proper, it would have only been a few months later that I was staying at my dad's for one of the school holidays. He had NTL, cable television, which meant we got all the cool subscription channels that we usually couldn't watch, like, in the case of Who, UK Gold.
But first, it's vintage time travel with Doctor Who.
And to this day, I still have the clearest image in my head of seeing Sarah Jane being chased around a manor house by robotic mummies. And it wouldn't be until a good 10 or so years later I'd see that story proper and understand what it was that I was watching. The Pyramids of Mars.
I am the servant of Sutek. He needs no other.
And it was those early repeats that really ignited my love for the show. I watched every broadcast I could find, and I began collecting the VHS tapes, starting with the Davros collection. And I wanted this set in particular because it gave me a good range of stories from Doctors 4, 5, 6 and 7.
The weaponry is perfect.
And from there I went charity shop hunting. Pretty much every time you were in a second-hand store back then, you could be guaranteed there'd be at least one or two Doctor Who tapes on their racks. One of my early pickups being An Unearthly Child. I really wanted to see the beginnings of the show, so this tape was quite high on my list for some time. And I even have a quite vivid memory of watching this one on an old CRT VHS Combi TV. I remember plugging it in and it flickering away on the screen in front of me and being so excited.
Wait in here, please, Susan. I won't be long.
And Inferno was another early one too. It was probably my first Third Doctor story.
You shall have your demonstration.
And weirdly, it was my only one that I owned for years. Looking back through my collection, the majority of what I owned was Tom Baker and Peter Davison tapes. I had very few from the other actors. And two in particular, I never actually owned one of his standalone stories. Of course, this was back when a lot of the 60s episodes were still missing or hadn't been animated.
The original tapes had been wiped, but film copies were made for foreign broadcasters.
So I remember that era's stories being really hard to find out in the wild. Which is really weird looking back, because Troughton in particular has since become one of my absolute favourite Doctors.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing. Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
And outside of the media releases, I even went to a convention. Odyssey 2004 in, of all places, Taunton in Somerset. I have a very hazy memory of the day in question, and looking it up online, there seems there's not much information, save for the fact that Colin Baker was there on the day that I didn't attend. Obviously. On the day I did, though, I met Matt Irvine, who was the operator of K9, who he brought along with him too. And he even signed a copy of K9's first story for me, which as a 9-year-old I was obsessed with. It was the coolest thing.
I am K9 and I am warning you.
Look, I came to see the doctor. I arrived with him.
I do have offensive capability. You have been warned. Retreat, retreat.
And then, but a year later, Doctor Who returned to our screens. And the rest, as they say, is history.
You want to come with me? Because if you do, then I should warn you.
All about you, humble viewer. How did you first get in to Doctor Who? Did you start with the classic series? Are you a fan of the new run, or are you, like me, a Wilderness Years kid? Let me know down below in the comments. And please leave a like and subscribe for more. Next week there'll be another Eurovision video where I'm going to be having some fun with AI, seeing if it can predict this year's contest. It should be a lot of fun, so make sure you stick around for that one. And to keep watching, click the links on screen now.